File number 180127, a substitute ordinance renaming North 4th Street from West St. Paul Avenue to West Capitol Drive to Vel Phillips Avenue, sponsored by Alderwoman Coggs, Alderman Bauman, Hamilton, Kovac, Johnson, Rainey, Stamper, Alderwoman Lewis, and Alderman Perez. And we have several of the sponsors present as well as on the committee. Good morning, Alderwoman Coggs.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Chairman and committee. Thank you for hearing us today. Last week, this city, this state, and quite honestly, this country suffered a major loss in the loss of Vel Phillips. Vel Phillips, who we know, and I could read off all of her wonderful accolades and the great firsts that she accomplished, but I'm sure that we all know those already. And while we think of ways to memorialize, to honor, and to reflect upon the tremendous contributions that Ms. Phillips made to many of us here at the City Council, being the first African American and first woman to ever serve on this council, as well as to this city as a judge, to this county, and to the state, serving as a Secretary of State, and to so many organizations with which she had the opportunity to help lead and be a member of. We think of ways to do that, and one of those ways to show that honor is through street naming. What some may not know is that while she was living, Ms. Phillips wanted a street named in her honor. And since her passing, many have recommended a variety of different streets for a whole bunch of different reasons, but she herself wanted 4th Street, from St. Paul to Capitol. And her reasons were that she herself attended Garfield School, which is on 4th Street, which is now the Griot Apartments. She attended church, and her family did, at St. Mark's, which at the time was on 4th Street. Her and her husband, Dale Phillips, got married at St. Mark's Church, which, of course, was on 4th Street. And 4th Street also ran through the 6th District at the time that she represented it here at the council, along with the fact that we recognize her as a civil rights icon, but she recognizes MLK as a friend. And the proximity of the street to his street, she would consider a great honor. These are conversations I had with her, documentation that a committee that she formed to help get her a street name provided, and that I know she had with Alderman Hamilton, Alderman Kovac as well. So in her passing, giving thought to the various ways that we could pay homage to her, but to also think of this. You know, she is a great trailblazer for us, you know, here in the city and here in the state of Wisconsin. But if you truly look at her accolades, accomplishments, her works, and her deeds, they rise to a national level. I was joking yesterday with someone, and I said you could line up 30 adults who in their lifetime collectively were not able to do what the one Vel Phillips was able to do with her life. And her ability and willingness to share her struggles and what she went through to help others to continue to fight for change in this community is one worth recognizing here in the city of Milwaukee, which is why myself and so many of you colleagues have seen fit to honor her in this way. But in a city where nationally, too often, negative statistics and things about us are what people recognize us for, I think this street naming and the work and life and deeds of Vel Phillips helped to shine a light on great things that come from this city and great things that have been done and have happened here in this city. So it's just our way of attempting to pay tribute to her. There are letters that have been submitted by a few community-based organizations in support of this that I'm sure you all should have, that I would ask becomes a part of the official record from Community Brainstorming, from the African American Roundtable, and from her son, Michael Phillips himself, who wishes he could be here today, but unfortunately he could not be. But I would like to end my remarks with reading his statement, if I can.
Please.
Dear Public Works Committee, with this letter, I express my full support for Substitute Ordinance 180127, the renaming of Milwaukee's current North 4th Street from West St. Paul to Capitol Drive to Vel Phillips Avenue. The alderpersons proponents of this legislation have well summarized my mother's career as a student, public servant, and civil rights pioneer. I will add simply that her social significance has rebounded in recent years through the Wisconsin Public Television production and airing of her 2015 documentary, Vel Phillips Dream Big Dreams. Not a week passes without a request for her appearance by telephone, in person, or via Skype from some Wisconsin grade school class, and each one seeks her story from its source. Unfortunately, my mother's life has passed, but committee, her time remains now. Especially in today's challenging climate of race relations, this proposed renaming will suffuse with permanence Milwaukee's commemoration of its homegrown civil rights icon, a woman, Vel R. Phillips, who fought for the freedoms not only of Milwaukee's minority citizens, but for all of its citizens. Please do not hesitate to contact me with questions or concerns, or if you seek testimonial input. Sincerely yours, Michael D. Phillips, Esquire.
Thank you. And Alderman Kohler would move to make all those letters part of the file.
Thank you.
Hearing no objection to that,
Mr. Chairman?
ordered. Alderman Murphy.
Can I be listed as co-sponsor, please?
Very good. We'll certainly
Thank
add your
you.
name to the file. Alderman Rainey.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Now join Alderwoman Coggs in support. When I think of notable African Americans that come from the city of Milwaukee, I don't think there's anyone who is more accomplished and more prominent than the late Vel Phillips. One thing that comes to mind is during our trip to Detroit, Chairman, you joined us. We had the opportunity to travel throughout the city. I believe Alderman Kovac was there as well. Some of the things that stuck out was the Joe Louis Arena, the Rosa Parks Transit Center, John Conyers Boulevard. These are the type of things that are left behind for generations to come. So we, in remembrance, pay tribute, pay homage to those who have, relentlessly sacrificed and made the impact that we have here and benefit from today. To think back and to actually imagine that as an African American and as a woman, the things that Vel Phillips accomplished is truly astonishing. So with that being said, I just wanted to come here today and make sure that I was a part of this moment and share my support for this resolution.
Okay, thank you, Alderman Rainey. Alderman Stamper.
Yeah, thank you. Well, good morning.
Good morning.
And thank you for this opportunity. So first, I got a letter from the Community Brainstorming Conference, unless you read it already.
I didn't read it.
Okay, so just so happens the chairman is my father, so I'm going to read on behalf of my father and I. So, dear Alderwoman Coggs and members of the Common Council, Community Brainstorming Conference is pleased to add its name to those who support the renaming of 4th Street to Vel Phillips Street in honor of our recently departed and long-term member of our organization. Vel was very close to all of us, and she was a faithful and dedicated member and officer of CBC for more than 25 years. Her commitment to justice and fair treatment was equaled only by her courage and her will to stand and deliver when it came to the struggle for civil and human rights. Her spirit, her memory, her ethics inspires us to keep on keeping on. Thank you for this opportunity. Sincerely, Russell Stamper Sr., Chairman of the Community Brainstorming Conference.
Thank you, sir.
No, thank you. For my comments,
Your dad's a really good writer.
He is. So, Alderwoman Coggs has shown exceptional leadership in honoring and recognizing a true real live Milwaukee living legend. She did pass away. And to be able to honor her and passing her as an alderman, which she paved the way for all of us, is a true honor. And to be able to be an alderman and sponsor this renaming and support this renaming in this history also gives me a great, good feeling, a heartfelt feeling to be able to do this, because she was also a friend of mine. And I can bet you every last one of us, when we decided that we wanted to help this city and make this city as equal opportunity for everyone, we all went to see Vel Phillips. We all went to get her support. We all went to get her comments. So I haven't seen her in a while, but the last time I saw her, she still was giving me stories. She still was giving me inspiration, and she still was fighting for justice in the city of Milwaukee. So thank you very much to all of our colleagues. It's an honor to be able to be a co-sponsor on this renaming of Vel Phillips. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And just for the record, and for those watching on TV and in the audience, I mean, Vel Phillips was the first African-American alderwoman?
Yes.
The first female alderwoman in the city of Milwaukee?
Yes.
The first female circuit court judge in Milwaukee County? The first African-American circuit court judge in Milwaukee County? And the first African-American statewide elected official, correct?
Yes.
That's absolutely
The
right.
only African-American to ever win statewide.
That is correct. The only statewide African-American official elected in the state of Wisconsin. Alderwoman Lewis.
Thank you. Good morning. Well, first and foremost, I have to say that it is such an honor to be here and to be standing with my colleagues on this. I had to rearrange my day just so I could be here because this is such a historical moment, and I wanted to be here to show my support and to just give a few words, and I will be brief. Unlike my esteemed colleagues, I did not have the opportunity to have a personal relationship with secretary, judge, alderwoman. Title goes on and on and on. But I did live through her legacy. I lived through what she was able to accomplish, and for that I am eternally grateful. And I jumped at the chance to help co-sponsor this renaming, because I think it is incumbent upon all of us to commemorate in some way her legacy, her life, and just the positive impact that she has had on Milwaukee and the city of and the state of Wisconsin, and just federally. Just to know that she hung out with MLK and all other and some other presidents. It's just amazing to see what comes from Milwaukee. And so that story needs to be told over and over and over to this new generation and to the younger women, just so they can see what they can strive to be. So I am honored to join my colleagues and show my support in this. So thank you.
Thank you. And last but definitely not least, Common Council President Ashante Hamilton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks, committee members. I really, you all have really said everything that's necessary. But I think it is extremely important for us to voice the level of support for this very fitting tribute for someone who's given so much to this community. And I know many of you, whether you met her or not, you knew that she represented her constituents in this community with elegance, with power, with grace, and to be able to do it in a way and still maintain a sense of humility and a common touch. And so it's just very fitting for us to be able to honor her in a way that is in a permanent way, so that people recognize the contribution that she gave, because her contribution was also permanent. And the inspiration that she's given to everyone in this city should be recognized by folks that travel through here. And so long as I just feel honored to be in the position to be able to do it for her. And I really appreciate the leadership of our council and our colleagues, especially Alderwoman Coggs, and being able to move in the direction that she actually asked for this, right? And at the time, it seemed a bit controversial, right? People had to change an address, or they felt like it would go through communities that didn't necessarily have a connection with her. But what we do understand now is that there isn't a community that exists in this city that hasn't been touched by her contribution. And I would hope that anyone that would see any inconvenience by the name change would recognize the inconvenience that she had to go through in order to make her contribution. And that's a small thing to give back to someone who gave this community so much. So thanks.
Thank you very much. We're also joined by Mr. Agee, who's Executive Director of the Martin Luther King Drive bid, correct?
That is correct, Mr. Chair.
Through which this newly named street will run primarily, is that correct?
This is a good part of
Please, your testimony, yeah.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair, committee members, all the aldermen that are here. It's an honor to be here with you all. I want to thank certainly Alderwoman Cox for her leadership and vision to do this now and not many, many years from now. I know this district touches both Alderwoman Cox district and also Alderman Bauman's district, and I think that is certainly representative of what Vel Phillips stood for, coming together. And so if we look at the name Harambe, and this Vel R. Phillips will go through Harambe. It will touch Bronzeville. So if we think about what work is being done by myself at the Business Improvement District and so many community members to create more equality in our city. And we think about the work that Vel Phillips did in fair housing. And if we look at her and her legacy and really think about it, she was really and is really a gift to Milwaukee's gift to the nation. The work that I'm doing on Martin Luther King Drive, I believe that by having the Vel R. Phillips Street adjacent to, as Alderwoman Cox shared, adjacent to Dr. Martin Luther King Drive during the time where we're celebrating the 50th anniversary, this is the time that we should do something like this. I wanted to be here certainly to support the alderwoman and all the aldermen that have sponsored this legislation, and really just add those comments. The future generation should remember Vel Phillips. And this, as Council President shared, this is a way to make it permanent. And so I want to thank you all for moving forward with this legislation, certainly Alderwoman Cox and all the sponsors. And I'm, again, honored to be here to speak on this file.
Thank you. Mr. Bailey.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, committee. On behalf of many of the citizens of Milwaukee,
Identify yourself, please.
Keith Bailey. Keith Bailey, I am a family friend, a very close friend of Mike Phillips and also Vel. And again, we honor her in her passing. Thank you. Thank you, committee, again, and thank you for Alderwoman Cox for inviting me. We get a chance and an opportunity today to do things Vel's way. Vel's way can completely and totally become Vel Phillips Avenue with the choice and the heavy decision we get to make here today. And I'm greatly touched and thankful that for the next 100 years, as Vel Phillips Avenue comes up and becomes a part of the communication in the neighborhoods and communities, from Capitol Drive through the Harambe District, I guess the Bucks Arena will get some of this too. We'll get folks that will get a chance to say Vel Phillips Avenue. It keeps her name. It keeps her name out there. It keeps the work she did through the most tumultuous racial times and terrible circumstances. I can't imagine what she went through to get where she got, and it reminds me that it gives me a chance to know that people will be able to say, because of what she went through and what she endured, I can endure also. Our city is not always that easy. We've got a great amount of challenges, but just to remember and think about what Vel Phillips may have gone through in her lifetime gives us great hope, and it gives us an opportunity again to come together and look at all the pluses and all the wins that we can achieve. One of the things that Vel constantly would say to me, say to us, is if you're given an opportunity or an opportunity presents itself to you, the main thing, Keith, I want you to do is take it. And we have a chance to do things Vel's way today by naming this street, 4th Street, which I grew up on between Capitol Drive and St. Paul, Vel Phillips Avenue. And again, I thank you for being here. I thank Alderwoman Cox for all the great, strong work she's doing. And this is a chance for us to honor the First Lady of Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and the First Lady of Wisconsin, Vel Phillips Avenue. And I look forward to driving down that street and remembering our pioneer, the First Lady of Wisconsin, Vel R. Phillips.
Thank you very much.
Chairman,
Yeah, Alderman Donovan.
I'd like to be added as a co-sponsor.
Very good. Alderman Donovan, that's no objection. That's so ordered.
Well, let's make it unanimous.
Okay, that's with no objection, so ordered. That's
Appreciate that.
very good.
Mr. Chair.
Alderman Cox.
For the viewing public, some of the history of Ms. Phillips we've shared, but it's a few things that don't get often shared that I just wanted to add. She was also the first African American elected to the National Committee of either of the two major political parties. She was elected to the Democratic National Committee in 1958 through 64. She was also appointed by President Jimmy Carter to lead the United States delegation to the United Nations Mid-Decade World Conference for Women, July 14th, 1980 through July 30th, 1980 in Copenhagen, Denmark. And if you ever got the chance to talk to her about her time as Secretary of State, she would say to you that she had the opportunity to serve as governor of the state of Wisconsin on 3 different occasions. So we could sit here, and I would be remiss if I did not mention her involvement in so many different civic organizations, but 3 in particular: Delta Sigma Theta, the Links of Milwaukee, and Jack and Jill. There is so much that she did with her life and her talents, both professionally and personally, that there is no bio, there is no bullet points that we could create that would tell the story just right. But this opportunity that we have to create Vel Phillips Avenue will be a continuance of her legacy and will cause conversations like the one we're having right now to continue on generations to come, which is a great thing, not only for her legacy, but for this city and our community. So I would say urge you to support it, but now that you all joined on as sponsors, I know you have. And Alderman Johnson actually asked me to make sure that I mentioned to you all his unwavering support for this as well. Unfortunately, he couldn't be here because he's with his twin newborns at home, but he wanted to make sure that you all knew that he had unwavering support for this legislation as well.
Very good. Well, thank you all. So I think our senior member of the Common Council, Alderman Murphy, will move to recommend adoption of this file. And
one final thing you forgot to mention, she was an actress.
Yes, she was. She was.
I didn't know that.
Forgetting her lines sometimes, but yeah.
But I'm very proud to move that motion.
so Vera, our senior member moves approval.
Mr. Chair,
Alderman
if
Coleman.
I could just say briefly, I mean, it's all been said, but there's always more to say about Vel. And we've mentioned that she was the first African-American, but also the first woman. And those are 2 firsts that both have a lot of meaning and both represented a lot of challenges for her. She was referred to during her first term as Madam Alderman. So being, there, and obviously, she actually had to change state law or sue over the districts, even to create the districts she was able to represent. And then, frankly, I think she deliberately left her picture off her a lot of her literature in that 1956 election because she wasn't sure if everyone knew that she was a woman and that she was African American. She wasn't sure how that would go. She overwhelmingly won re-election after that once people got to know her. But she was very practical and very aware of the challenges around open housing and the challenges around the gender gap. And those challenges are still here. We're still more than 50 years after her efforts. We're still the most segregated region in the country, and I don't think anyone who watches the news or pays attention to our current elected leadership that doesn't know that the gender gap very much still exists. She liked to say that She didn't march with Father Grappi. Father Grappi marched with her. But getting that kind of recognition wasn't always easy, and she knew Martin Luther King, and when Dr. King called, sometimes she'd tell him she'd call him back. She was his peer, and now she'll be next to him and even go beyond him. And I know that was very important to her, that her street be included in the downtown, and Dr. King's wasn't. And so it's symbolic. There's a lot of work to do, but also I think it's very appropriate to recognize the efforts that she had and who she worked with, but more importantly, who worked with her, making many achievements, almost all of which are still incomplete.
Thank you very much. Great. Alderman Murphy recommended adoption, and hearing no objection to that, so ordered. Thank you all for coming down.